Many times, new and even experienced managers are overly focused on how much work is being done rather than what their team actually achieves. This can sometimes get you wrapped up in some of the wrong directions. A better approach is to focus on what is actually accomplished. This requires establishing a performance based climate that's based on team commitment. And we'll discuss how to do this in this episode. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
When we talk about work and achievement, here's what we mean. Work is the ongoing process of performing tasks and activities, while achievement is the successful attainment of specific goals or outcomes. In essence, work is about the effort and process, while achievement is about results and accomplishments.
Now, to create a strong culture that drives performance, leaders have to articulate the organization's core values in a way that resonates with employees. They need to keep the employees' own ideas and reinforce the values through practical means. The studies have shown that setting the right culture accounts for a significant part of business performance.
So what does this mean? Well, first and probably most important, it means that as manager, instead of measuring how much work is done, you need to prioritize what is actually achieved. That means having measurable outcomes. Set a few quantifiable goals and metrics that can be measured successfully. It's also critical that you get staff to buy in to the need for the goal and its value to the organization.
And this also means that there needs to be regular feedback on performance, both positive and constructive, so staff know that you're involved and interested. And staff must also know that you will recognize and reward outstanding performance.
Rick, that's so, it seems almost funny, but it's so critical that there's got to be a specific goal-setting process and then regular feedback on performance, both positive and constructive. And it's so easy to say that the manager needs to set up a specific time, whether it be weekly, monthly, whatever is the right time, and then staff know that the performance is going to be looked at, both it may be individual, but it's definitely going to be team performance as well, on those specifically set and regulated timeframes, and that the boss will be there and will be actively involved.
Yeah, I've seen examples of where departments will post on a whiteboard or something in a meeting room or whatever the objectives or the things that the team is to accomplish by individuals who's in charge, and so you can see how you're doing against your peers, and everybody can see how everybody's doing. And in many instances that's very effective. I mean, it doesn't work in every case, but yeah, that kind of visible, just having your performance be ahead of everybody else's is a reward in and of itself, if that's the case. Or if it's not, then you're going, oh, I better pull my socks up here,
Right. Right. To the extent possible, you need to set a framework where decisions are based on actual data and evidence rather than assumptions. I worked in a situation where every month, the CEO of our company brought in a former vice president of sales of PepsiCo, who was a great believer in putting things up on the board. And here, each individual's numbers were up on the board. And I have to tell you, when he first came in to do that, I was pretty uncomfortable with what was happening. But eventually, I and everyone else got used to his modus operandi. He was a little bit, I felt, too tough in the fact that if somebody was behind, he got on them pretty hard, where I thought that could have been done more on an individual basis. But the idea that it was up on the board, I got used to and understood that from the company standpoint that it could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's what we mean when we say, the feedback needs to be either positive or constructive, rather than punitive, which it sounds like your guy was more on the punitive side if you weren't keeping up with the pack.
No question. Finally, you must be continuously focused on improvement. And I felt that in the instance I gave, that it was more punitive than it was focused on improvement. So focusing on performance allows for identifying areas that need improvement and for adapting strategies to achieve better results.
Let's talk now about ways for the manager and their team to successfully implement this achievement-focused approach. And first, there must be a certain amount of flexibility. I think we've been sort of hinting at it. That is, that there should not be any unnecessary rules or practices or policies or procedures, with the emphasis there on unnecessary. And you want to try to strike a balance so that there are enough rules to maintain order and safety, but not so many that they stifle creativity and efficiency. In other words, the focus should be on minimizing bureaucracy and encouraging innovation where it's appropriate and called for.
I think that I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that I like to do in my coaching is to say to a manager, when was the last time that you had either a committee set up or you talked with your entire department on any unnecessary rules, practices, or policies that you've had? And I must tell you that I get a blank look back and no answer to that question when I ask it. And I say to them, look, I don't care whether it's every 6 months or once a year or something, but what happens is that people whose jobs depend upon it come in and set rules or policies that ultimately over a period of time become unnecessary, and you have to have some way for staff to be able to say this is unnecessary because it will make their job easier and more productive.
Yeah, I think one of the things that happens is that it becomes, rules after a while sort of fade into the woodwork, and you get a lot of, well, we've always done it that way, or that's always been a rule around here, and nobody really questions. And I think to follow up on what you're saying, Fred, that you need to sort of actively challenge rules. I mean, not disobey them, but say, why do we do this? It seems to be inefficient or whatever. But actively question and encourage your staff. And I think here you got to be careful. I mean, it should be a group activity rather than people independently saying, well, I'm not going to follow that rule. It doesn't make any sense to me. But reviewing the policies and rules that impact how you work. And sometimes you got to take that upstairs, but, just have that questioning mindset. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Next, staff need to feel responsible for their assignments. Make sure they understand that they have the authority to do their job as they see fit, that they've got the autonomy and can use discretionary judgment. As a manager, you need to give them ownership as well as accountability. This is especially important to upwardly mobile professionals. You want to give them as much autonomy as possible and encourage risk-taking.
Yeah, at the same time, there needs to be an emphasis on excellence, and you need to set challenging yet attainable goals. So, in other words, set clear, realistic goals, expectations, and performance criteria while continuously seeking improvement and providing constructive feedback. Your focus needs to be on improvement and excellence.
Of course, there also needs to be rewards, especially feedback on performance. This involves the degree to which employees feel that they are being recognized and rewarded for good work. Such feedback significantly boosts employee morale, motivation, and engagement, ultimately leading to higher productivity and promotion. Salary and bonus are important, but non-financial variables are evaluated as well.
Oh, that is so true. And keep in mind that for this to go smoothly and succeed, it's critical that the manager provides clarity, that the manager provides clear, concise, decisive information as to the direction, as well as what's not the direction the assignment is to take. And it's especially if we're, giving them permission to be creative and innovative, you got to make sure that you've sort of defined the boundaries so that they stay in the right direction. But it's a structured approach that prioritizes understanding the problem, evaluating options, making a decision as quickly as feasible, and communicating the decision effectively. Such strong, clear direction has shown a strong positive correlation with outcomes.
We've been talking a couple of times in here that you need to give people the right to make decisions for themselves. As the manager, however, it is your responsibility to be overseeing the process, seeing what's happened, and when someone either starts to make a wrong direction or oversteps their authority, that's when you would come in and help them to understand why they've done it and why it's important for you to state what you've stated, that they need to stop doing whatever the wrong approach was.
Right, and what's important there is that you do it with respect. That is, you are respectful of what they're trying to do and sensitive to, when you're correcting them, how that correction is going to be taken in a positive way. I don't know how else to put it, but it's one of those places where the manager really has to be on their toes. Yeah.
An additional benefit to the manager of such a focus on achievement is that staff will feel proud to belong to the organization because their opinions are valued and they'll provide extra effort when needed. They feel part of the team when they are recognized for their contributions, feel supported, and have opportunities for growth and development within the team.
In summary, a better approach to performance evaluation is to focus on what is actually achieved rather than how much work is done. We explained the difference between work and accomplishment and then discussed how to recognize the approach when it's being utilized. Then we focused on the ways for a manager and team to implement the approach. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more Management Mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.